time for the Longines Chronoscope, a television journal of the important issues of the hour, brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A presentation of the Longines Whitnor Watch Company, maker of Longines, the world's most honored watch, and Whitnor, distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Mr. William Bradford Huey, author and analyst, and Mr. Harley Burt, author and correspondent. Our distinguished guest for this evening is Dr. Howard Rusk, chairman of the American Korean Rehabilitation Commission.
Dr. Rusk, we're fortunate this evening in that you have just returned from Korea and you can give us a first-hand report on some of the interesting things there. First of all, our viewers are most interested about the prospects for peace in the Orient, sir. How do you feel yourself about the prospects for a peaceful settlement?
Well, I'm not an expert in that line, but it certainly is very heartening to me. It seems to me that this is one step that we must make. And in my own heart, I can't help but feel hopeful about it.
Well, sir, you, of course, are a famous doctor and one of the most famous people in the country regarding rehabilitation work, because you visited so many nations for our own country. But first of all, sir, what can you tell our viewers about the medical care of our own GIs in Korea?
Well, I'm particularly interested in that because having served in the Air Force in the last war and still being in the medical service, I had an opportunity to visit a number of our military hospitals in Korea, and never in the history of the world have soldiers gotten as good care, as prompt care, with as low mortality rates and as little suffering.
Have we improved over our medical techniques in the Second World War?
Oh, very definitely. Our record is very much better, and especially the air evacuation with helicopter and plane and hospital ships, and hospital trains, and trained mobile surgical units right behind the lines, and then back to Tokyo where everything is available.
The soldier who's hit on the front lines now in Korea has the best chance of surviving that he's ever had.
That anybody's ever had in any war.
Doctor, since you just came back from Korea, you can give us a little report on this, perhaps. I know that you say you're not a military expert, but you must have observed something there. There have been quite a lot of reports about an ammunition shortage over there, which would be a very serious thing, of course. Did you see any signs of an ammunition shortage while you were in Korea?
Well, I can only quote General Maxwell Taylor on that particular point, and at dinner some 2 weeks ago he said this. He said, I have never known a commander who had enough ammunition. Ammunition is like money in the bank. You spend it when you need it. He said, I have all that I need to spend and plenty in reserve for any foreseeable contingency.
Well, that's reassuring. Now, there's a second big issue in this country today so far as Korea is concerned. The thought of the South Koreans backing up the American troops. What kind of soldiers do you think they'll make?
Oh,
observation.
That I can speak very forcibly on. I don't think many people realize the tremendous tempo of training that's going on in the ROK Army in Korea at the present time. We have 16 service schools in Korea. We have a little Fort Benning and a little Fort Knox and a medical service school. And the tempo of training is tremendous. And these boys, when they go to the front now, you remember in the early days of the war, they were going up with only 5 days of training.
Do the American troops themselves have confidence in the South Korean troops, the soldiers?
Terrific. In many of the squads up front, there are 2 Korean boys in the American squads, and they're on the buddy system. I heard a number of officers told me that the Koreans were so accurate with their artillery that very often our troops asked that their artillery support come from their Korean comrades.
Well, Doctor, of course, the purpose of your mission to Korea was to lay plans for the rehabilitation of the civilian population of Korea. Is that correct?
That's
sir?
right. Our mission went over to see what the needs were, and we knew before we went that they were great, but we had no idea until we saw how great.
Can you illustrate for our viewers, sir, can you tell us something about the extent of civilian suffering in Korea?
Well, of course, you know, first Korea's been fought over 5 times. 600,000 houses have been destroyed. There are 100,000 counted orphans. There are 7 million refugees.
Speaking of those orphans, I've seen pictures in various magazines and in the press about these homeless waifs by the roadside that the soldiers would pick up. Is there much, are there many of these stray children
There's
there?
still a good many, especially in the refugee centers like Busan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tremendous health problem in Korea. In the first place, I'd like to say that I think they've done the greatest public health job under the greatest odds in modern history. Typhoid, malaria, typhus, smallpox are all under control. Tuberculosis is the great problem.
There's been no great epidemics.
No.
then.
But 7.5% of the population have tuberculosis. That's 1,600,000 people. And 400,000 are acutely ill with tuberculosis and no hospital beds. There are only 850 trained Korean doctors in civilian life today for 19 million people. That's 1 for every 23,000.
Is our military organization able to assist the civilian population, give them medical assistance?
They've done a wonderful job. There isn't a clinic or, a clinic for Korean civilians that our doctors don't go and work after hours. They come in our hospitals when beds are available. Now a training program's been set up for young ROK Army surgeons. Half the teaching in the medical schools are being done off hours by American doctors. I was in one briefing with a 2-star general, and at 5 o'clock a major got up in the back and held up his hand. He said, "May I be excused?" And the general said, "Yes, what for?" He said, "I have to go and teach my class at the medical school." He said, "You're excused." When he went out, he said, "That man has taught a class every day from 5 to 6, 5 days a week for over 8 months and never missed a day."
How about the individual GIs? Do they recognize the plight of the South Koreans and try to help them out in an individual way, from person to person?
That was one of the most moving things that you see in Korea. They feel toward them as their comrades in arms. They recognize their plight. There isn't an outfit over there that doesn't have an orphanage or a hospital or a group of orphans or somebody they're helping. One of the biggest sales items in the PX today are care packages of powdered milk and powdered eggs, specially made up so the GIs can buy them and give them to the Koreans.
Well, this is sort of a new precedent, really, because historically, armies have never gotten along with civilian populations, particularly foreign armies. Now, would you say these people are getting along well? The GIs are getting along very well with the South Korean people?
Remarkably well, and I think I know why.
Uh-huh.
In many ways, they're like us. They're rugged individualists. They're tall, strong people. Someone has said that they're the Irish of the Orient. I told that to a Korean friend. He said, "You're mistaken." He said, "The Irish are the Koreans of Europe." To me, they're sort of a mixture between the Irish and the Finns. They're rugged individualists and real tough fighters. And our boys respect them, and they respect also their problems.
Well, our people, perhaps seeing the Koreans in the newsreels, they don't seem to be suffering in the manner that we've seen other people suffering. Is there any explanation for that, sir?
Well, one physician said that you can't diagnose malnutrition unless you strip the patient. And you see children in these refugee camps with their cute round faces. You don't recognize the fact that under the rags they just have wisps for legs and arms.
Well, Doctor, you, of course, are making a report on your observations. Now, can you give us some indication of the recommendations you're going to make for relieving this suffering?
Well, in the American Korean Foundation, and that's a hyphenated word, it's both Americans and Koreans, we hope to sort of be the yeast in the bread, to be helpful in stimulating and working with some of the United Nations programs, the missionary programs. They've done a terrific job in Korea, and the other relief programs. While we were there, we established a rehabilitation center for amputees, working with...
You're supplying them artificial limbs, things of that sort?
Our foundation is going to supply them trained teachers. The ROK Army are going to furnish the prosthesis in the beginning. The ROK government, the Rice, and UNCRA, the teachers in the vocational schools, and all together with this team now, we're on the road.
what is the principal need for helping these people outside of the fact that it does come from the heart and you always want to help people that are suffering?
Well, I think that primarily the American people will want to help because I think that's the best way they can back up the GIs. One boy in the hospital told me, he said, I told my folks not to send me any more food packages. We have plenty of food here and I can get ice cream and anything I want. But send me things that I can help my Korean friends with. I think that's number one. And I think this has to be a warm program, a person-to-person sort of thing, because I think that's the way we feel.
You see American organizations adopting orphanages and that sort of thing over there?
Well, I've talked at 2 or 3 meetings, my own staff at the hospital yesterday and in the little church I go to in Westchester the day before, and both of them want to take an orphanage. The hope of the future of Korea, and I think in not an insignificant degree, the free world of the Korean children. Most wonderful, eager kids that I ever saw any place.
And do you foresee, for our viewers who may be interested in this program, sir, just how can they help the individual American?
Well, I think 10 cents a day will give a Korean child an addition to his diet that makes it adequate. 40 cents will take care of an orphan and feed and clothe and educate him. $200 a year will put a Korean youngster through college. I mean, that's the sort of thing that when I talk about a warm program, that I think people will want to do.
Well, I'm sure that our viewers appreciate these expressions from you, sir, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
The opinions that you've heard our speakers express tonight have been entirely their own. The editorial board for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope was Mr. William Bradford Huey and Mr. Hardy Burt. Our distinguished guest was Dr. Howard Rusk, chairman of the American Korean Rehabilitation Commission. In England, as in America, Longines is famous as the world's most honored watch. And in commemoration of the coming coronation of the gracious Queen Elizabeth, Longines has produced several series of coronation watches, including these magnificent examples in the art of the jeweler watchmaker, each bordered with a continuous band of diamonds of the finest quality. In each one is the famed Longines watch movement, one of the very few watch mechanisms in the whole world worthy of a frame of diamonds. Among the finest watches in the world, only Longines has won 10 World's Fair grand prizes, 28 gold medals, and so many honors for accuracy in competitive accuracy trials at the great government observatories. Now, whether you pay $71.50 or many hundreds of dollars for a watch, every Longines watch is made to the single uncompromising Longines standard of perfection. So when next you buy a watch, either for yourself or as an important gift, these are facts to remember. Longines, the world's most honored watch, the world's most honored gift, for mother on Mother's Day, for a wedding, an anniversary, or for a graduation. Longines, premier product of the Longines Whitnor Watch Company since 1866, maker of watches of the highest character. We invite you to join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening at this same time for the Longines Chronoscope, a television journal of the important issues of the hour, broadcast on behalf of Longines, the world's most honored watch, and Whitnor, distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. This is Frank Knight reminding you that Longines and Whitnor watches are sold and serviced from coast to coast by more than 4,000 leading jewelers who proudly display this emblem, agency for Longines Whitnor watches.
This is the CBS Television Network.